if I were to develop a hardcore mode for Tom Clancy's The Division 2, now, this is a hypothetical situation. I cannot develop squat. I can't develop a Tetris game, nor can I do a ping pong game. Okay, so let's get that out of the way before people come in the comment section saying you don't know what you're talking about. You can't develop anything. Yada 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 yada. Get lost. If I was to develop a hardcore mode, what would it look like? And this is where I want you guys to comment. What would your hardcore mode look like? My hardcore mode will start with recycling content that's already there. I'm not going to go too far to think about anything. What am I going to do for? There are all these missions that are there. There are all these areas that are there. There are all these control points that are there. So the first thing is I first take all the missions and I recycle them to have all kinds of different surprises. You guys know how, the global events were. The global events were a take on some kind of different form of something. Now, those were fun. They were a very nice play on things. We could borrow some of those concepts from the global events, but that would be too cliche. That would be too easy, right? So what do? There have been people who have said that what if the hardcore mode actually entailed the Black Tusks taking over your safe houses. I think that's a wonderful idea. And you have nowhere to run. You have to fight your way to start taking your safe houses one by one, and at risk of losing your safe houses and at risk of even dying and losing all your progress, but also with the reward of getting something really nice after each completion phase. So that's the thing. You have to tell people, hey, if you complete, I will tell people, I'm talking about, say, if I threw my ideas out there, that if you complete this much, if you take maybe, say, Foggy Bottom, you're going to get this reward for Foggy Bottom. You're going to get this badge. You're going to get this. And you're going to have a chance at selecting your exotic of choice that you can keep. So exotic of choice, I'll give you 2 categories. 1 gear, 1 weapon. It will still be based on RNG. It'll roll for you. You can keep it. Really? Okay. People are going to be engaged in that. I think I'll be engaged in that. So that's the first part, using that and giving a reward. So safe houses, missions. You go into those missions. Those missions have bosses that you probably haven't seen before. Maybe they take a boss from somewhere and they make a new boss in the hardcore mode, a boss that gives you trouble. A boss that makes you backtrack in the mission, that keeps following you, that pressures you back into the open world where you started the mission from. And you have to find a very significant way to beat the boss. Lincoln Memorial. This is over the way at the Tidal Basin side. Lincoln Memorial is a very perfect way to do it because you meet like multiple bosses all the way through that mission. And these bosses need to be very difficult. They pressure you, not just become bullet sponges, but give you problems. And so number 1 is taking over your safe houses. Number 2 is beating difficult bosses that act and behave differently. And then number 3 is actually adding hunters to these hardcore modes. And these hunters can be like the way they actually add them in Underground, where they can surprisingly spawn out of nowhere and give you a good fight. And so for every mission that you take, for every area that you're taking that area, it's safe houses, it's missions, and all of that. You do that, you get a reward. You die, you're starting all over again. But the rewards are just worth it. If the rewards were worth it, we would play it just like the raid. For those of you who completed the raid, you know how many times you died in Boomer. You know how many times you died when you got to Razorback. You know how many times Buddy and Lucy frustrated you. So Division players are not averse to starting all over again. We're just averse to doing things that have no reward attached to them at all. So what is this hardcore mode, about? Now, this is just a beta, and I don't know if they're even going to bring it out in full swing or if they're even going to maybe bring out new content. And this is just to kind of maybe say, hey, you guys play this and, get off our backs. But if I was to do a hardcore mode, these are just some of the things that I will put in place. Then for the hardcore mode, if I really wanted to add content, I will put strongholds in level 4 control points, where these strongholds, you're going to be fighting against some of the most elite NPCs that you can find in this game. In fact, I think this is the opportunity, this so-called hardcore mode, to introduce a new faction. Don't put that faction in the regular game because that just makes everything cheapened. Put the faction in the hardcore mode where people now say, you know, I'm going into this hardcore mode and I'm going to take on this new faction. The faction will have all kinds of fun, you know, tactics that you have to learn and deal with. And because your experimentation of this new faction is very limited, you are in a very tough spot. So think about it. You've made your progression. You've dealt with Black Tusks. You've dealt with, you know, all the other factions in the different areas. You continue to progress. Getting closer to the end of your progression, you meet this new faction. If you die, you have to go back and start again. So you don't have a lot of time to learn about this faction. You only have experience, which means dying and going back again and again and again, or pure luck or patience to help you finish this mode. So what happens is it increases the difficulty, and it makes you, if you beat it, very much satisfied that you've done it, and maybe even be more willing to do it again so that you can be the person that's showing people how to do it. There's now something in the community that does not need 8 players, but is equally challenging and equally rewarding and equally bringing players together. Now, this may be a sucky idea for all I care, but I don't make games. Like I said in the beginning, I'm just a little guy in a little corner in my house giving ideas for what I feel a challenge mode or some kind of hardcore mode for the Division can look like, if we even need a hardcore mode. Some people said, you know, a hardcore mode seems kind of foreign. I don't think so. I think it's just the way they implemented this particular beta version of it that looks really measly. You know, it's like a malnourished piece of content, in my opinion anyways. But if they really wanted to make it full, they don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to go further than, they don't have to do anything. They already have all the structures in place. They have control points. Those can be used as strongholds. They have the missions already. Those can be used to bring and introduce new bosses with different dynamics. And then they can use one of the areas on the map and use that for a new faction on the map. So if you then beat the hardcore mode, some people will be like, so when you beat the hardcore mode, what's going to happen? I'm glad you asked. The systems are already in place. What if once you beat the hardcore mode, now you're playing the game against this faction? It's a chess game against a faction. So everything that you've taken away from the other factions to get to this final brand new faction, starts to disperse and take it back from you. And you guys are in a constant hardcore battle, and you're constantly taking stuff away from there. So it's now a matter of pride, because now you've gotten everything that comes with this hardcore mode. You've beaten everybody. You've done the final boss fight. You've destroyed this faction, so-called. But now, you know, the lore can say they've all scattered, just like the lore did in Division 1, saying, oh, you know, the underground. The lore for the underground was like all these factions, even though you defeated their head, their leaders, they all scattered and went underground. Well, there you go. They scatter and they start taking back safe houses. They start taking back, you know, control points or strongholds. And so when you log into your hardcore character, you're like, where did I stop? Or what's going on right now? And then you go back and you're like, oh, crap, they've taken the safe house. You go back and try to go take your safe house back from them at risk of dying and losing all your progress. How far do we have to travel to get new content? Now, I'd have to say, though, those rewards have to be transferable. Please, let's not waste our time here keeping rewards on a character that is going to be deleted or is going to be useless once the character dies and all the stuff that is looted. At least let players be able to keep their major rewards, because that's what playing a game is about, farming the rewards and knowing that you have them. So that's all I have for you guys, man. I do appreciate you guys taking time to listen to my own version, but what is more important, I want to listen to your version. I want to read your version in the comment section. If you made a hardcore mode for the Division 2, what would it look like? Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.